Ever feel like you're carrying around a backpack just crammed full of rocks?
Rocks.
Yeah, you know, like each one is some worry.
Oh, I see.
Some fear or responsibility, and you just feel like you have to control every single thing in your life.
Right.
And it's just, it's exhausting, right?
Yeah, what you mean.
But what if I told you there's a different way?
Cool.
Not giving up, but letting go.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we're diving into today.
Okay.
With this piece called Don't Worry, God Has Everything Under Control.
Interesting title.
Yeah.
I like it.
So what's interesting is that right away, the source, you know, it doesn't try to sugarcoat how hard life can be.
Yeah.
It uses the phrase sharp-edged and unforgiving.
Ooh. Yeah. I think we've all been there.
I think we can all relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like toughen up or here's a quick fix, it actually goes deeper and explores this idea of surrender.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, you know, the source gets it right. Like constantly striving to be stronger, smarter, better.
Sure, yeah.
That can be a huge burden in itself.
Yeah.
Like we're just constantly bailing out this leaky boat.
Yeah.
But there are just leaks springing up everywhere.
I like that analogy, the leaky boat. That's good.
And that's where it gets really fascinating, right?
Yeah.
It's where this whole idea of the illusion of control that the source brings up is it's not just that we can't control everything. It's that this belief that we can is actually like a trap.
Yeah,
the source calls it a mirage.
A mirage, that's a good word for it.
Something that looks real but ultimately leads us totally astray.
Yeah.
There's this really powerful image in the source.
Oh, yeah.
It talks about standing in a field at dusk and there are all these altars around you.
Whoa.
And you're invited to basically leave all your burdens there.
Wow.
And it just made me think, what am I holding on to so tightly that I could actually just let go of?
Let go of, yeah.
You know?
Right.
What are those rocks in my backpack?
Yeah, exactly.
That I don't need to carry anymore?
That's a good question.
And so the source is saying, you know, letting go, surrendering, that's the path to peace.
Yeah.
But it's clear that surrender doesn't mean weakness. Right?
Absolutely not. No.
How does the source define it?
Well, it's more like a courageous act of trusting something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
And I think to really grasp this, we need to unpack what trusting something bigger actually means.
Right, because it can sound kind of vague.
Exactly, it can. But it's not just some vague feeling. It's recognizing that there's this force, this wisdom working in the world around us.
Okay.
And we're a part of that. And this force, it's a good thing, it's benevolent.
So it's like acknowledging we're not alone in this.
Exactly.
Like there's something supporting us.
Yes.
Guiding us.
Even when we can't see it.
Even when we can't see it.
Exactly.
And that's where faith comes in, I guess.
That's a part of it, yeah.
Not necessarily religious faith, but just this deep trust that there's this intelligence, this love at the heart of everything.
At the very heart of it, yeah.
And the source makes a point of saying that this something bigger, God, it doesn't expect us to be perfect.
Right.
And there's this line that really hit me.
Yeah.
It says, He doesn't require eloquent words or perfect faith. He asks for the real, raw, unfiltered you.
I like that.
It's such a relief to hear that.
Yeah, I can see why. Especially, you know, for those of us who grew up with this idea that we need to be good enough to deserve love or support.
Yeah, exactly.
But the source is saying that our imperfections, our messy humanness, those aren't barriers to connecting with the divine.
So it's not about pretending we have it all together.
Yeah.
It's about just showing up authentically.
As you are.
As we are.
Yeah.
That's incredibly freeing.
It really is. And the source, it goes on to give these really down-to-earth examples of what surrender can actually look like in everyday life.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, it talks about a mother desperately praying for her child.
Okay.
A man facing financial ruin. These aren't like super spiritual gurus.
Right.
They're just normal people.
Yeah.
Facing really tough situations.
And it's in those moments, right?
Yeah.
When our own strength fails.
Yeah.
That surrender becomes...
It becomes essential.
Not just an option.
Yeah, it's a necessity.
But a necessity.
Yeah, because we're forced to let go of our own limited perspective and reach out for something bigger.
Yeah.
Something beyond ourselves.
Okay, so the source is saying the peace that comes after we surrender.
Yes.
It's not the absence of storms, right?
That's right.
It's a change in how we go through them.
It's a shift in perspective.
It makes me think of that story, you know, of Jesus sleeping in the boat during a storm.
Yes.
His disciples are totally freaking out.
Of course, yeah.
But he's completely calm.
Yeah.
And when they wake him up, remember what he says?
Yeah, he asked them, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?"
It's like he's saying, why are you carrying this when you can trust me with it?
Exactly. That's a powerful question, isn't it? Why are you so afraid?
Yeah.
It's like this invitation to really examine where we're placing our trust. Mm-hmm. Are we putting our faith in our own limited abilities, or are we leaning into something larger, something that can actually calm the storm?
In the Source, it makes this beautiful connection between surrender and brokenness.
Brokenness.
Yeah. You know, it says things like, cracks are where the light gets in, and brokenness can become a sanctuary.
That's powerful.
It's like it's saying those imperfections, the places where we've been hurt, the places where we've been wounded.
Right.
It's not something to be ashamed of.
No.
It's actually the place where we're most open to receiving grace and love.
So instead of trying to hide those parts of ourselves, we can actually embrace them as sources of strength and healing.
So we can actually embrace them as sources of strength and healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's a radical shift in perspective, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's seeing our imperfections not as flaws, but as the things that connect us to something larger than ourselves.
The things that make us human.
Exactly. Our shared human experience.
Our shared human experience.
Yeah. You know, as we've been talking about surrender, I'm curious, what's been standing out to you? What's resonating with you?
Honestly, I think my initial reaction to the word surrender was pretty limited. You know, my mind immediately went to like the white flag, giving up.
Yeah, I get that.
But what this source is describing is so much deeper.
It is. It really is.
It's more about surrendering to something, right?
Exactly.
Something vast and supportive.
The source uses this phrase, giving over. And I think that really captures it well.
Yes. That's perfect. It's like consciously choosing to place our trust in something that's maybe bigger than we understand, but ultimately benevolent.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get practical. Say someone's listening and they're like, okay, this surrender thing sounds interesting, but what does it actually look like in my life?
Right.
The source, it mentions a few specific things, right?
It does. And it all starts with awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah. The source really emphasizes paying attention to those times when we're just white knuckling it, you know, trying to force things to go our way.
There's those times when we're stressing over things we can't control or trying to make everything go exactly according to plan.
Yeah, like micromanaging every detail.
Exactly.
Yeah, those are the red flags, the signs that we're relying only on our own strength and not tapping into that larger source of support.
Okay, so awareness is the first step. What comes after that? How do we actually start to let go?
Well, the source talks about prayer as a really powerful tool for surrender.
Prayer.
And it's not just about asking for what we want.
Right.
It's about actually surrendering our worries, our fears, even our desires to a higher power.
So it's like, okay, I've done what I can. I'm trusting you to take it from here.
Exactly. It's acknowledging our limitations, saying, I don't have all the answers, and inviting something bigger to guide us.
And you know, what I appreciate is that the source doesn't make prayer seem like this big formal thing.
Right.
It emphasizes that it can be a simple, heartfelt conversation.
Yeah, it's about that genuine connection, not some rigid ritual.
Right.
In fact, the source even mentions that sometimes the most powerful prayers are the ones whispered in silence.
And I think that's really important because it makes prayer feel more accessible. We don't need to have it all figured out or use the right words.
It's the longing of our hearts to connect with something bigger.
Something that can offer guidance and support.
Exactly.
The source also mentions gratitude as being a key part of surrender.
Gratitude, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, gratitude has this incredible way of shifting our perspective from what we lack to what we already have.
Right.
It reminds us that even when things are tough, there's always something to be thankful for.
And when we focus on what we're grateful for, it becomes easier to let go of the worry and the fear, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. It's like we tap into this sense of abundance, a recognition that we're already supported and provided for.
So gratitude helps us access a higher vibration, a frequency of love and abundance, which makes it easier to surrender to the flow of life.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so we've talked about awareness, prayer, and gratitude. What are some other things we can do to cultivate surrender in our everyday lives?
The source is a big proponent of self-care.
Self-care?
Making conscious choices to nourish our bodies, minds, and spirits.
So it's not just about, pampering ourselves.
No, it's about creating this foundation of well-being that actually makes surrender more accessible.
So things like getting enough sleep, eating nourishing foods, moving our bodies, spending time in nature.
Exactly.
All the things that contribute to our overall sense of well-being.
Yeah, because when we're depleted and running on empty, it's so much harder to tap into that inner peace that makes surrender possible.
It's like trying to swim upstream when you're exhausted.
Yeah, you just get swept back down. That's a great analogy.
We need to replenish those energy reserves to have the strength to let go.
I like that. And the source emphasizes that self-care is not selfish.
Right.
It's a form of self-respect.
Self-respect.
Yeah, honoring our needs so we can show up for ourselves and others.
You know, one of the things I find most challenging about surrender is the fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
We're so conditioned to control every aspect of our lives, to plan everything down to the last detail. Letting go of that control can be terrifying.
It can be, yeah. The source actually addresses this directly.
Okay.
It describes our need for control as a mirage.
The mirage.
Something that promises security but ultimately traps us in this cycle of anxiety.
So how do we move past that fear? How do we learn to trust that even when we let go, we'll be okay?
It's about cultivating faith. Not necessarily religious faith, but a deep trust in the wisdom of the universe. A belief that even when we can't see the path, we're still being guided and supported.
So it's like having faith that there's a plan, even when we can't see the whole picture. That we're being looked after, even when things feel uncertain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of trust, it doesn't just happen overnight.
Right.
It's built through experiences.
Yeah.
Those times when we do take a leap of faith and things work out.
So we need to pay attention to those signs, those synchronicities, those moments that remind us that we're not alone, that we're being taken care of.
Yes. The more we pay attention to those signs, the stronger our trust becomes. The easier it is to surrender.
One thing that really stood out to me in the source was how it emphasizes that surrender is not passive.
Right. It's not about just sitting back and letting things happen.
Exactly. The source actually describes it as an active choice.
An active choice, yeah.
A conscious decision to align our will with a higher power.
So it's about recognizing that we have a part to play, but we don't have to do it all alone.
Yeah, like we can co-create with something larger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's about discerning which actions are ours to take and then taking them with clarity and purpose.
Knowing that we're supported every step of the way.
Yeah, and with a sense of ease.
It's like surrendering the outcome, but not our responsibility to participate in the process.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance between effort and surrender, action and allowance.
And I think that's where it can get really confusing. Because sometimes surrender, it looks like things falling apart.
Right.
We might go through setbacks, losses, challenges.
Yeah.
It makes us question if we're on the right path at all.
It can, yeah. And the source talks about how surrender doesn't necessarily make life easier.
Right.
But it changes how we relate to the difficulty.
So we might still experience the storms.
Yes.
But we're not being tossed around by them.
We have a stronger anchor, a deeper sense of peace that helps us navigate the challenges with more grace and resilience.
And that resilience comes from the trust that we're being guided and supported, even when things feel chaotic and unpredictable.
Exactly. It's remembering that even in the darkest times, there's a light within us that can never be extinguished.
That's beautiful. It's like saying that even when we feel lost and alone, there's a part of us that's always connected to something bigger, something brighter.
And that connection, that's what sustains us.
It gives us hope.
Guides us back to our true selves.
So to come back to your earlier question about what surrender looks like in daily life, it seems like it's not about avoiding the storms.
Right.
It's about finding a way to navigate them with more grace and strength and peace.
Exactly. And recognizing that sometimes the most courageous and transformative thing we can do is simply let go.
To surrender to the flow of life. To trust in something greater than ourselves.
And allow ourselves to be carried by the current of grace that's always there to support us.
As we talk, I keep coming back to this idea that surrender isn't a one-time event. It's a daily practice, something we cultivate over time, with intention and patience.
I think that's such a good point. It's easy to think of surrender as this perfect state of being.
Where we never worry or doubt again.
Yeah, like some ultimate destination.
But the reality is, we're human. We're going to have moments of fear, uncertainty, resistance.
Absolutely. And that's okay.
So the key is to keep coming back to that place of surrender, again and again.
Every moment is a new opportunity to let go, to choose love over fear.
And to celebrate those small victories, those moments when we do manage to let go, even if it's just for a brief moment.
Because those small acts of surrender, they can have a ripple effect throughout our lives.
They can, and the more we practice, the easier it becomes.
Yeah, definitely.
The Source also talks about how, as we practice surrender, we start to experience these everyday miracles.
Everyday miracles.
Not like parting of the seas or anything, but those subtle shifts and unexpected synchronicities that remind us that we're being guided and supported.
Those are so important, like finding unexpected comfort when you're grieving or having this sudden clarity after months of confusion.
Yeah.
It's like getting these little love notes from the universe.
And those moments, they become more frequent as we deepen our practice of surrender, don't they?
I think they do, yeah. Like we're tuning into a different frequency, a frequency of love and grace that was always there, but we just couldn't perceive it before.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's like we're opening ourselves up to a whole new level of perception where we can see the hand of divine guidance working in our lives, even in the smallest details.
Yeah, that's it.
And as we tune into that frequency, we start to experience more peace, more joy, more abundance.
It's like aligning ourselves with the flow of abundance that's always there.
And the more we trust that flow, the more effortlessly things seem to fall into place.
Yeah, it's not that life becomes easy or without challenges, but we develop a greater sense of ease and grace in how we navigate those challenges.
So to sum up, it seems like surrender isn't about deprivation or giving up on our dreams.
No.
It's about opening ourselves up to a world of possibilities that we could never have imagined on our own.
It's about trusting that the universe has our back, that we're being guided towards our highest good, even when we can't see the path ahead.
You know, as we're talking about all this, I'm struck by how the Source describes surrender as an act of courage.
It is, isn't it?
In a world that values independence and self-reliance, it takes real courage to admit that we need help, to let go of control, and to trust in something bigger than ourselves.
It's recognizing that we're not meant to do it all alone, that we're part of something bigger, something interconnected. And that we can draw strength and support from that connection.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're not these isolated individuals, but part of this vast, interconnected web of life.
And within that web, there's a power, a love, a wisdom that's always available to us.
If we're willing to open ourselves to it.
If we're willing to open ourselves to it, yeah.
And that openness, that willingness to surrender is what allows us to tap into that power and live a more fulfilling life.
It's aligning ourselves with the flow of life, trusting that we're being guided and supported, allowing ourselves to be carried by a force that's greater than ourselves.
It makes me think of that kintsugi pottery again.
Kintsugi pottery, yeah.
The Source talks about how our brokenness, it's not a liability, it's a sanctuary.
That's such a powerful reframing.
Instead of seeing our imperfections as something to hide or be ashamed of, we can embrace them as the very places where grace and love can enter.
It's like those cracks in the pottery. They're not flaws, they're what make each piece unique and beautiful.
And it's through those cracks that the gold can be poured in, creating something even more exquisite than the original.
That's such a beautiful analogy. It highlights the transformative power of embracing our imperfections, seeing our brokenness not as a flaw, but as an opportunity for healing and growth.
And the Source reminds us that this process of surrender, this embracing of our brokenness, it's not always easy.
No, it's not.
It's a journey, a daily practice of letting go and trusting.
It is, and it's a journey worth taking, even if it's just one small step at a time.
Because even those small steps can lead to profound shifts in our experience of life.
Absolutely. And the more we practice, the more we realize that surrender isn't about giving up.
It's about opening ourselves up to a life of greater peace, joy, and fulfillment.
Exactly.
That's a great place to pause for now.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground, and I think it's good to let these ideas sink in a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Take some time to reflect on what we've talked about, see what resonates with you.
We'll pick back up in our last segment, exploring how we can actually put these principles of surrender into practice.
And how to create a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
So we're back, and I'm ready to dig into, the how-to of surrender.
Yeah, the practical side.
We've talked about what it is, why it's good for us, but how do we actually live it?
Make it real.
Not just a concept, right?
Exactly.
So the Source, it points out that surrender is a practice.
Yeah.
Not like a destination.
Right, not some end goal.
So we're not aiming for some perfect detached state.
Right.
We're talking about a way of being.
A way of life.
A way of relating to everything,
Ups and downs.
All the ups and downs.
Yeah.
So it's like building a muscle, right?
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. But what are those exercises?
Right. Good question.
To strengthen our surrender muscles.
Well, the source, it really highlights mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
And not just like meditation, although that's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
But mindfulness all through the day.
Oh.
Just noticing when that tension creeps in.
When we get anxious.
When we're trying to force things.
Yeah, like gripping the oars too tightly.
Exactly.
Like when I'm obsessively refreshing my inbox.
Oh, yeah.
Waiting for that email.
I've been there.
Or replaying that conversation in my head like 100 times,
Yeah, we all do that.
Trying to figure out what I should said differently.
I know that feeling.
And in those moments,
right.
What does the source say?
It says to just pause.
Okay.
Take a breath and just ask, what can I let go of right now?
Just that shit.
Even for a second.
Back to the present.
Exactly.
Creates that space
for
surrender.
A little breathing room.
Yeah, a little breathing room.
And in that space, the source suggests connecting with something bigger through prayer.
Okay, prayer.
Not just asking for stuff.
Right.
But really giving it over.
Those worries, fever.
Everything, even our desires.
So it's acknowledging we don't have to control everything.
Right, and that can be so freeing.
And the source also talks about gratitude.
Ah, yes, gratitude.
Helping us with surrender.
How so? Why is that?
Well, gratitude, it shifts our focus from lack to abundance.
Oh.
Even when things are hard, there's always something to be grateful for.
Always.
Health, loved ones, a beautiful day.
And when we focus on those good things, the anxieties, fears,
start to loosen their grip. Because we remember we're already supported, loved, part of something much bigger.
Exactly.
It's like that gratitude creates a bridge.
A bridge.
From our limited perspective to that wider view.
Where everything's working out.
Where it's all working out.
Yeah.
Okay, so mindfulness, prayer, gratitude. What else helps?
The source is a big advocate for self-care.
So self-care, yeah.
And this isn't just about, bubble baths.
Okay.
Although those are nice.
They are nice.
It's about those choices that nourish us.
Body, mind, and spirit.
Exactly. Sleep, healthy food, movement, nature, joy.
Yeah, we can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, true. That's a good one.
We have to replenish ourselves.
Yeah, to have that capacity to surrender.
And it's not selfish.
No, not at all.
The source says it's self-love.
Honoring our own needs so we can give to others.
One of the things that makes surrender so difficult is that fear of the unknown.
Yeah, I get that.
We're so used to controlling everything.
Planning every detail.
Letting go of that feels scary.
It's a big step.
The source, it calls that need to control a mirage.
Leading us away from peace.
So how do we get past that fear?
It's about cultivating trust.
Trust, yeah.
An inner knowing that we're loved and supported.
Even when we can't see the whole path.
Exactly. And that knowing comes from experience.
From taking those leaps of faith.
And seeing things work out.
So paying attention to those synchronicities.
Those little signs.
Those signs, yeah.
That we're not alone.
Yeah, we're taken care of.
And the more we notice them, the easier it becomes.
The source uses this great image of surrender as giving over.
I like that. Not giving up.
Not giving up, yeah.
But giving over.
Choosing to trust.
Something bigger than ourselves.
God, the universe, our higher self.
Whatever resonates.
Whatever helps us connect to that trust.
And as we do that,
give over those worries.
Our perception shifts.
Those same problems.
They feel lighter.
Those fears don't have the same hold.
Like detaching from the drama.
Seeing things more calmly.
Yeah, not so reactive.
And we can respond to challenges.
Yeah.
With grace and wisdom.
Instead of getting swept up.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Beautiful transformation.
And it's available to all of us.
If we're willing to do the work.
To cultivate those practices.
That supports surrender.
So as we wrap up, there's this one thought from the source.
Okay.
About the peace that comes from surrender.
That peace, yeah.
It defies logic, but it just feels right.
Deeply right.
It says, what if, instead of fighting the current, you allowed yourself to be carried by a love that won't let you go?
That's beautiful.
That's the invitation.
To let go and trust.
And experience that peace that's beyond understanding.
It's powerful.
If you're interested in learning more, we encourage you to check out the source material.
Explore these ideas further.
Until next time.
May you find peace in letting go.